In this lesson, we are going to convert between ratios, percents, fractions, and decimals. In the first example, we are going to write the ratio of shaded squares to total squares. So it will look like shaded squares to total squares. The first set, there are 100 squares in total. You can see the shaded part right here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. There are 50 shaded squares to the total number of squares. The second diagram, I still have 100 squares. The top two rows of 10 are shaded. That is 20 to 100. Now I'm going to write them each as a fraction. It'll be 50 over 100 and 20 over 100. Now we're going to write each ratio as a percent. Remember, percent means something out of 100 or a whole. Since I'm already out of 100, the top number will be the percent, 50%. Here is 20%. Do both ratios and percents compare apart to a whole? Yes, they do. In our next example, we are going to find the percent of what is shaded in this diagram. First step is to write the ratio of shaded to total number of squares. This step is done. There are a total of 5 squares and 2 squares are shaded. So now we write this as a fraction, 2 over 5. To find the percent, we have to write an equivalent fraction with 100 as the bottom number. Here's my original fraction. I need to make it equivalent. And I'm going to use a scale factor. So what do I do to the 5 to get 100? I multiply it by 20. So I'm going to do the same thing to the 2. I will multiply it by 20. 2 times 20 is 40. So the shaded part of the diagram is 40%. Now I'm going to show you how to complete a fraction, ratio, decimal, percent table. I have my 4 columns. The first one is done. I have a fraction of a half. That is a ratio of 5 to 10 or 1 to 2. A half is always 50% and my decimal is 0.5. My next ratio is 2 to 5. I can write that as a fraction, 2 over 5. It gives me 40%. We know that because I have to multiply by 20 to make it out of 100, which we did in the previous question. And as a percent, that is 0.4. I now have a fraction out of 100, 21 out of 100. My ratio will look like this. This is my decimal. There is my percent. For D, my ratio is 3 to 10, which means my fraction will be 3 to 10. I can convert that to something out of 100. It would be 30. That way I have 30%, 0.3. I have a fraction of 1/4. To make that equivalent over 100, I would multiply it by 25 and do the same. I'll get 25 over 100. As a ratio, that's 1 to 24 or 25 to 100. 25%, 0.25. Remember, when you have a fraction that is not already out of 100, make an equivalent fraction so it is out of 100. That will help you get your percent and your decimal right away. This example shows us how to use a scale factor to determine percent. I have a fraction of 7 out of 20. Imagine you got 7 out of 20 on a test. What is your percent? To go from 20 to 100, I multiply by 5. That is my scale factor, so I will do the 7 as well. I get 35 out of 100. I get 35%. For B, what do I do? To go from 50 to 100, multiply it by 2. So I will multiply this number by 2, and that will give me 46. That is 46%. For C, if you had a quiz and got 3 out of 4, what would your percent be? To go from 4 to 100, I multiply by 25. I will do the same thing to the 3. That gives me 75, and I have 75%. Now it is your turn to figure out percent. In the first question, on the average rainfall for a region is 25 centimeters per day. On one day, 15 centimeters fell. 15 out of a possible 25. First, write the ratio in fraction form. Then, to find percent, make an equivalent fraction with 100 as the bottom, and then you'll be able to find your percent. In this question, you're going to find the percent for each question, each fraction. Make an equivalent out of 100, it will give you your percent. Then, order them from greatest to least. Remember, if you can't go from 8 to 100, you can reduce the fraction to a number that will multiply to get 100.